F1 Manager 2022 is here. Anticipation has been incredibly high for this game ever since it was first announced. With an in-depth promotional campaign and strong visuals, F1 Manager 2022 is trying to pry players' time away from both F1 22 and racing games, as well as Football Manager and other sports management titles. The question is, has it succeeded? I'm Mark from RacingGames, and here is our review of F1 Manager 2022. Starting your journey as team principal is pretty simple in F1 Manager 2022. You pick a team, enter your name, and select if you want tutorials on or not. We chose Haas, said sorry to the Günther Steiner fans, and got straight to work. Right away you are presented with everything at your fingertips. You can start scouting staff and the best young drivers, or in our case, buy out Kevin Magnussen's contract and bring in Oscar Piastri. Sorry Kevin, it's nothing personal. With pre-season testing running in the background, you can go right into the first race of the season, or start developing new parts immediately. The menus are relatively easy to navigate, and the email inbox acts as a good prompt to remind you about development needs, a lack of parts after crashes, and any upcoming events that need your attention. Everything feels instinctive in the menus, but how complicated is the car development? Formula 1 is an exceptionally technical sport, and there is definitely a world where you might need a motorsport engineering degree to truly understand this game, but Frontier has done an excellent job of boiling things down into understandable sections. Your CFD hours, that's computational fluid dynamics to us mere mortals, and wind tunnel hours are broken down and visible at all times while you plot which part you want to design. You can tweak areas of focus and assign engineers to work on the design and manufacture stage of each part. The amount of personnel, along with the efficiency of their time, can be increased by improving your factory facilities, but only if you have the required resources. The game is impressive in both its depth and simplicity. The whole system feels remarkably easy to interact with, even if you aren't well versed in what goes on behind the scenes in Formula 1. However, you aren't going to spend too much time within these menus. Everything is a click or two away, and nothing is especially buried. If something is hidden away, you probably won't be interacting with it more than a few times a season, as most of your time will be spent at the track. The race engine has been a huge selling point for F1 Manager 2022, and it really is amazing to watch. Despite appearances though, everything is still incredibly simple to interact with. Much like the real world, your race weekend starts with practice, where fine-tuning the setup for your drivers is crucial. It works very differently from F1 22 though, in that you aren't chasing lap time necessarily. Instead, you are chasing a good balance to the car, and where this balance is depends on what each driver likes. One might prefer more oversteer, while the other wants more traction, just like in real F1 teams where one side of the garage prefers a different setup to the other. Practice is very much not a case of slap on all the wing for Monaco and pull it all off again for Monza, as it all comes down to driver confidence. The more confidence your driver has in the setup, the faster they will be. Again, very much like the real thing. Once practice is done and dusted, you're into the business end of the weekend, qualifying and the race. Now this is unfortunately where the race engine does start to show some cracks. While you have an incredible level of control over your drivers when it comes to pushing the tyres, maximising throttle and burning through ERS, the action on track is far from predictable and can get a little frustrating. Considering we're starting to look at the downsides of the game now, we might as well cover them all. Before we move on, have you subscribed to RacingGames yet? Just one click and you're on the RacingGames grid. Oh, and hit that notification bell too so you never miss an upload. Alright, on with the video. For as good as the race engine is to look at, there are a few drawbacks and issues too. In qualifying, the AI cars are a real menace. They don't get out of the way effectively on in or out laps, meaning you need to make it absolutely sure that you aren't going to come across any on your lap. They also don't build a gap at all for flying laps, so being at the front of the queue is best, but if you go out too early, you'll just end up losing time when you catch the tail end of the queue and miss out on the track evolution. We know that qualifying can be a traffic paradise at the best of times, but this takes things to the extreme. The AI is also superb at getting out of the garage at the last possible moment, so you can't try to leave last, as there is absolutely no margin left to make it to the line in time. They will also go all out at the end of a session unnecessarily, with even the Red Bulls and Ferraris going out again at the end of Q1, no matter if it's rain or shine. This can lead to cars pushing hard, but still lapping 20 seconds slower than the pole sitter. And then we have the DRS trains. During the race, cars get stuck in overtake loops far too easily. Even if you've flown up to the back of a car in front, you can still get stuck in an endless chain of DRS moves, swapping positions back and forth. It is incredibly hard to break that DRS gap, and as a result, races fall into groups of cars, each slowing the other up. If you're a fan of cycling, just imagine a 1000 horsepower peloton. Being able to run in free air is like gold dust, and thanks to this, races can fall into quite a repetitive feeling, where there is really nothing you can do to help your driver break away. We found ourselves just speeding up this part of the race, rather than watching the battles, which is a real shame. Another issue F1 Manager has is in its weather prediction system. There is no radar showing you incoming rain, a sight we see on every pit wall in Formula 1, and very little visibility about future weather events. All you have in your race view is a bar in the top right corner showing the time until a certain percentage chance of rain. This gives a very uncertain view of the conditions, and doesn't let you proactively prepare for the conditions like you could with a full radar setup such as in Gran Turismo 7. Instead, everything is reactionary, which would be okay if you could also see into the future, but because your only long-term view is more percent chances, you can't predict if you should go straight to wets and skip intermediates, or throw in an extra stint on the green tyres just in case. You can't even get a sense of if a decrease in rainfall is permanent or temporary, which means reacting to crossover points can be extremely costly. We're not saying that F1 Manager 2022 should give you a perfect view of the weather, but having a radar system rather than a countdown to a percentage would be more realistic and allow principals to act accordingly. Even if there's an element of unreliability in the radar, it's still better than nothing. Detailed weather data is something every team has, and while you can upgrade the accuracy of your reports, it seems bizarre not to have a radar provided on the virtual pit wall. One other thing to mention is that F1 Manager 2022 is not a light game to run. Our very own Toby D has been playing the game for us, and despite comfortably meeting the recommended specs on Steam, his PC fans kicked into high gear and the graphics card went into overdrive every time the game opened. For a management game, this is crazy, and has been an issue both before and after the Day 1 patch. Hopefully there is a future optimization patch on the way, but you might need to consider how to keep things cool if you are planning on playing on a laptop. Finally, there is also an issue around regen drivers. While the current 20 F1 drivers have their voices, helmets and faces in the game, others do not. Oscar Piastri is represented by only a helmet and a generic voice with minimal voice lines. This goes for every other non-F1 driver too. We put Nick de Vries and Stoffel van Dorn into AlphaTauri, and what was waiting for us on the home screen looked more like the Stig and his mate going on a road trip. While this isn't a huge problem at the start of a save with just one new driver, going a few years into the future means suddenly you have an anonymous avatar in your car rather than a real driver with a personality, and for us that's a shame. Perhaps Frontier can add more faces and voices for the non-F1 drivers as the game evolves, but for now it seems we're limited to just the F1 grid. I realise that we've covered a lot of negatives here, but in the interest of fairness, many of these are minor issues in an otherwise well implemented game, so let's head to the final section for a nice little roundup. Despite the negatives, F1 Manager 2022 is an absolute blast. It manages to blend the technical challenges of Formula 1 with a high degree of accessibility for players new to either the management genre or Formula 1 itself. Sure, it doesn't quite live up to expectations, but that was always likely given the hype this game received. What F1 Manager 2022 does best is put you at the heart of everything. Your decisions and choices matter. If you leave your driver's ERS on, it just goes. There are no warnings or auto shut-off. You are in control. You can even have a driver just run out of fuel on the road if you aren't paying enough attention. Yeah, sorry about that, Mick. The parts that don't quite work as well, like the race flow, are aspects we can see being continuously tweaked and updated, both this year and into the future. F1 Manager 2022 is great, and it's hard to believe this is just the first installment of a multi-year franchise. As frustrating as some races can be, they are also very tense and thrilling affairs. A driver error can be as costly as any strategic mistake you make, and that's where the joy of the management game comes in. No matter what you do, things might not go your way. A red flag or a safety car might come just after your attempt at an undercut, your driver might spin out when challenging for the lead, or your strategy might fail on the day. The unpredictability and replayability of F1 Manager 2022 are what will draw in the fans, and we here at RacingGames will definitely be sinking in the hours over the next few months. What do you think of F1 Manager 2022? Are you excited to get stuck in as a team principal, or would you prefer to steer well clear of being the boss? Let us know in the comments below. For now though, thanks for watching. I've been Mark from RacingGames. Please like and subscribe for all things F1 Manager 2022, and now I'm off to buy my ticket for that DRS train. Choo choo!